The reason we have conferences like this is that it takes a lot of work to dig up this hidden history. We have to go and comb through hidden archives and do oral history interviews. And so it's great to get to see how each step, every couple of years, we get to see how we're learning more and more about that past.
Hey y'all, Adam Keller here with the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk show, and I'm really excited about this interview we have today. I'm talking to a brother from the Southern Labor Studies Association, and if you are a listener of this program, you know how passionate we are about Southern labor history, the rich history we have of working people in the South banding together to build power for themselves and their communities. So I'm really excited to talk to Max today about Southern labor history and how we can all rebuild that legacy and share it with the next generation. So, Max, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So, if you could just start by introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, what you've studied, and why you're interested in labor.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm excited to be here on the radio with you all, and these kinds of community-based shows and stations are so important to the future of democracy in our region and our country. I'm Max Krochmal. I'm a professor of history at University of New Orleans, UNO, where I also direct our program in justice studies. And I'm a historian of the labor movement and of social movements broadly, and community organizing and coalition building. I look particularly at the intersections of race and labor across the American South and Southwest, and the ways in which people of varying backgrounds come together to transform their lives in the world. Before coming to New Orleans, I taught and worked and lived in Texas for quite a while. Before that, did grad school in North Carolina. So I've been in the South for more than 20 years now, and that's a key place for working people, and not just locally, but for the nation and for the world. And so I'm a historian, and I'm also president of the Southern Labor Studies Association, as you mentioned, which is a group of scholars in the area. I guess you asked me why did I get into labor? Well, I had also been a union organizer, and I'm sort of inherited a tradition of labor militancy in my family. From outside of the South, from other regions, but my grandparents were at the center of the old left, and I grew up with a lot of those stories before me, and some kind of a deep sense of injustice about inequality and about being a poor person in America. And I think that then led me to college, and when I was in college, to the labor movement, where I could really learn something on the ground.
That's really cool. I mean, I love to hear the family heritage that so many folks in our movement have, and I'm a person who didn't really have that coming into the movement, so it's always fascinating when I talk to folks who did have that upbringing. But it's also really cool to hear the union organizing background, because I think you know often there's a disconnect between like academics who study the movement and those who are the organizers and practitioners inside the movement. So I think it's always great when folks, have a foot in both worlds and can really see both perspectives there. And so tell us a little bit about the Southern Labor Studies Association. You mentioned you're the president. What is your organization? What are y'all about? And what do you do?
Yeah, so the Southern Labor Studies Association is a voluntary group of scholars, mostly historians, but people from other fields as well as activists, labor journalists, people who are just interested in both the past and sort of present and future of labor across the American South. And it started out many years ago. There was a conference that would meet regularly in Georgia, in Georgia State University. Merle Reed and Gary Fink had organized that, I think, going back to 1976. And then I think it was around 2007 or 2009, somewhere in there, we had a meeting with LACHA, the National U.S. Labor and Working Class History Association at Duke University, and decided, let's make Southern Labor Studies its own association as well, and sort of regional branch. And then we kind of kept spinning off on our own. But since then, we've met about every 2 years, and we have a large meeting where folks give papers, and there are roundtable panels, and discussions among both scholars and activists to think about what we can learn from the region's history, and particularly with an eye toward transforming it in the future. So yeah, this fall in September 19th to 22nd, we'll be meeting in Chattanooga at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. And we have, I don't know, more than 20 panels of people coming together over a few days to explore different aspects of Southern labor. And we define that very broadly. Labor is not just people who are in unions. It's not just like industrial workers and hard hats and craftsmen. We very much take an approach that emphasizes everybody who works, and all the different kinds of work. And so that means looking at women and women's labor, looking at race and folks of color, looking at queer workers, and thinking about people inside and outside of the formal economy, people who are farmers, really anything about about how working people live, and how we fight in order to create a better world. So we have a really exciting meeting coming up. Among other things, we have a session that will be honoring Dr. Tara Hunter and her path-breaking work on African-American washerwomen in Southern history, Atlanta and beyond. From really the Reconstruction era well into the 20th century. Just a brilliant book that many of us grew up on, and we're excited to have a conversation about that with her. And we also have a panel, because we're meeting in Chattanooga, that will be focused on the victory there of the UAW auto workers at Volkswagen. The first new unionization of an auto factory in the South in decades. And so we're very excited that the chief strategist of the UAW International will be there, Chris Brooks. Nelson Lichtenstein, who's a leading historian of the union, will be there. Rank and file leaders from Chattanooga will be there, and as well as community organizers from that area. So, I think it's going to be a really exciting gathering, and a chance for us to take stock of where we are and where we want to go.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've already registered. I highly recommend folks, if you're in the area, if you can make it, especially if you're in the Tennessee Valley here. Of course, you're not too far from Chattanooga, and I think it is fitting to have it there, given that huge victory you mentioned. So I'm really excited to hear, from folks on the ground, and how that campaign unfolded and how they're moving forward, right? And pursuing a good contract, and being able to enforce a good contract and then grow from Chattanooga throughout the South. And also appreciate what you mentioned about, this broader perspective of labor. Because, yeah, I think, a lot of folks, they hear labor and, they may think, well, a union guy, a big burly union guy in a hard hat, right? And that's not necessarily representative of the entire working class, those who work, those who don't own. And so I think that's really important. And I appreciate the emphasis that y'all have there. And something that really, to me, is so important about the South is we have this rich history of working people, including really diverse working people, working together to try to make our lives better and to fight back against bosses and politicians, to fight back against Jim Crow. We have that strong legacy, but it's not very well known. And so I think it's really important that we have a Southern Labor Studies Association, right? Because the South is unique. The South is pivotal to the rest of the country. And the South has been this bastion of anti-unionism for so long. And so much has been invested in this Southern economic model of, exploitation and oppression. And so reviving that history, letting our Southern folks, our Southern neighbors know that unions are not some outside interest, despite what, our governors and our legislators may want to say that, they portrayed the UAW as this outside, Detroit interest attacking Alabama values. But the truth is that, union organizing and labor organizing is just as Alabama as football and sweet tea and biscuits and gravy, right? Like, it's part of our heritage too. And so all that to say, yeah, I love what y'all are doing and appreciate what y'all are doing. And I'm really excited about this conference, being in Chattanooga. And remind us again when that conference is.
Yeah, it's September 19th to 22nd this
Awesome.
year, so about 2 months away.
And
Yeah.
where can folks find more information?
They can look up the association at southernlaborstudies.org, and it has all the information there about the conference. We're just about to post a preliminary program of the whole weekend. Um, we're trying to keep it affordable for people. So, if you have an institution, whether that's a university or a union that's going to fund you, we ask for a little more. But if you don't, I think you can register for $75, and that includes a whole bunch of meals, breakfast, lunch, the banquet dinner with the panel with Dr. Hunter. And so, we're fortunate that a bunch of folks are kicking in to try to make it available and accessible to everyone.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really cool. Very, very appreciated. Because I think it's important that, it's a diverse group of folks that are engaging around this content, right? It's not just professors. We need y'all as professors. We love y'all. But we got to have a mixture of folks, in the room having this dialogue. So I think that's really, really cool. So one thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go is just your general take on the state of labor today. I've been asking folks to come on our program uh, because we've seen, or at least we think we've seen, a revival of the labor movement over the past few years coming out of the pandemic. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing down in New Orleans? And, what do you see for the state of the labor movement today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I mean, and maybe before I answer that, I just want to back up to what you said a moment ago about the history that the South does have this rich labor history, history of resistance, of organizing, of people coming together across racial and gender lines, and people going on strike together, and even sometimes winning. Often we tell these stories where people get clobbered, right? But we also have these remarkable moments of solidarity, and of people coming together and really envisioning a new world, a better world as possible, and laying out steps to get there. And so that's really important. And Alabama's got a super rich history, and the whole region. And the reason we have conferences like this is that it takes a lot of work to dig up this hidden history. We have to go and comb through hidden archives and do oral history interviews and find microfilm newspapers and so it's great to get to see how each step every couple of years we get to see how we're learning more and more about that past. And I think it's a really useful past for the current moment that we're in. The labor movement is resurgent across the country in this moment. I think for a number of years we've been talking about inequality, and that's nice, but it's a little bit academic, and it's kind of how folks who have enough talk about it. and now we're getting into a new conversation, I think, where working people are really leading the way, that they are organizing formally and informally. They're demanding better working conditions across the nation, including in the South. Folks are quiet quitting is one phrase, or they're just demanding more money, or they're saying, I'm not going to keep working for the same pay or the same terrible schedules or whatever it might be. And there's all these new efforts to organize in the South. So we mentioned, of course, the UAW and the big win in Chattanooga, the really tragic loss in Alabama. But that's just one battleground, and the South has been the battleground really forever, certainly since Operation Dixie in the 1940s. And it matters, in the sense that if working people can come together to form unions or other organizations that really help them decide their fate at work and in their larger community, we have a chance of changing the politics of the region, which will also transform the nation and the world. It's like we got one minority party in the U.S. that's stopping the entire planet from dealing with climate change. Right? We can fix that by organizing in the South, and Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting activity, whether it's the auto workers or the retail and restaurant workers, the Starbucks workers in the region. Um, Hospitality workers are branching out into new areas, healthcare workers. So in New Orleans, we've had some major wins just in the last couple of years in those categories. We have just earlier this spring one of the biggest hospitals in the city, the RNs organized through National Nurses United, and we're hoping that they can get a contract. We had the full-time contingent faculty at Tulane University organize a union and get NLRB recognition. Hopefully they can win a contract. The hotel and restaurant employees, hospitality workers, Unite Here, have had a number of new contracts and victories. And really raising standards across that industry in New Orleans. And so hopefully that will, uplift that sector really across the South. Anytime one of these unions wins, it's good for all workers. And the high tide lifts all boats. And I think, even at the heyday of U.S. labor, there were never more than 1 in 3 workers in unions, but it meant that the standards, even in non-union firms, were really, really good, and that we had this, this new development called the middle class, right, which is now already gone. It was a short-lived idea, but I think it's a really important moment in the South for taking stock and for pushing the unions to fight harder and fight more. I'm really excited about the new leadership in the UAW and what they're doing. We have, I didn't mention teachers, but they're remaining organized across the South. I'm also a member of the United Campus Workers, which is affiliated with CWA and organizing higher ed workers across the South. And we're going to have a session about that also at the conference. So it's a critical moment. Our conference theme is called Crossroads of Resistance. And I think that Chattanooga is that, the South is that. And, temporally, we're at that kind of crossroads moment where, right now, the South can continue to plunge toward fascism, or I think we can, begin to turn things around and build a South for the people. And in so doing, really change the future and hopefully of the nation and beyond.
Amen, brother. I really appreciate that. And there's a lot you said that resonated with me. I mean, New Orleans, I was joking with you before we started recording. New Orleans, is becoming a union town, or at least it's trending that way. Some really big wins you mentioned there with National Nurses United, Tulane, etc., Starbucks Workers United as well. Happy to hear about the United Campus Workers because I know their convention is coming up tomorrow in Alabama. I'm excited to be there and visit with some folks at the convention. They're doing really exciting work across the South and in this public sector space that is such a tough terrain here in the South, but so necessary to tackle. And, so I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and all the work that the Southern Labor Studies Association is doing. I think the conference is right on time and very necessary and useful for folks. So I can't recommend it enough. If you're not a member of the association, go check it out. If you can make it to the conference, please do so. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to talk about this heritage that we have and how this heritage really can teach us about the future that is possible if we can work together, if we can build the people power we need to make that progress. So, Max, was there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you want to make sure we talked about today?
No, that's great. And thank you so much for supporting the conference. And I'm glad to be at the convention as well. I'm gutted that I can't be there for this founding convention, but it's a critical moment. And I'm thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder, folks, we are on the air in New Orleans on WHIV. We really appreciate that partnership there. And of course, we're online and on the radio here in Alabama as well. But we love our New Orleans folks and really appreciate y'all. So, Max, thanks again for joining. And again, y'all attend the conference in September in Chattanooga. It's going to be a good time. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.